I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
The fairy tale is over, in a move no one saw coming, and one that Disney likely never wanted leaked.
When people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much.
Major theater chains across the US and Europe are reportedly pulling Snow White from their lineups just weeks after its release. The reason? Plummeting ticket sales that bottomed out faster than any Disney film in recent history. At first, the shift was subtle. One fewer daily screening, a pulled 3D show here, a replaced time slot there. But now, it's a full-scale retreat.
Because right now, there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie.
Entire multiplexes are scrapping the film mid-run, with some locations replacing Snow White with re-releases of Moana, Zootopia, or anything, literally anything, that will fill more seats. Insiders say the decision wasn't emotional. It was financial. The numbers were bad, then they got worse, then they collapsed. And it all traces back to a single viral moment.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on their love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
It should have been routine, a puff piece, another press stop, but when Rachel Zegler took the mic, it turned into the implosion of a marketing campaign.
Their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, said she hated Snow White, mocked the fact that there was a prince, and that she falls in love as opposed to leaning into her own power. We could go on.
In a now infamous interview, the lead actress behind Disney's modern Snow White trashed. The original 1937 film rolled her eyes at the idea of romance, called the prince a creep, and flat out said her character doesn't need a man. Fans were stunned. This wasn't a bold new take. This was a disowning of the very story she was cast to bring back to life, and audiences took it personally. TikToks racked up millions of views mocking the clips. People started canceling pre-orders. Comment sections exploded with messages like, "Why? Even call it Snow White? She hates the movie she's in. This is why we can't have nice things." Even loyal Disney fans, the kind who show up for every premiere, buy every lunchbox, and wear the shirts to the theater, began tapping out.
Hold on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
Noted.
Thanks.
Once the backlash hit, theaters started watching their numbers closely, and what they saw was devastating. Weekend drop-off rates reached record highs. In some cities, Snow White lost over 75% of its audience between week 1 and 2. Entire. Regions started dropping showtimes by the hour. Some theaters only sold single-digit tickets per screening. In one viral photo, an entire auditorium sat empty at a Saturday night showing. That's when the chain reaction started. Theaters began, replacing Snow White with anything that might generate foot traffic. Some even brought back Frozen 2 just to fill dead space. Others quietly removed all promotional material from lobbies, skipping any public announcement. And while Disney kept up appearances, the numbers told the real story. This wasn't just a slump. It was a mass rejection.
I'm a narcissist.
That she is. And by the way, the producer of Snow White, his son, knows it.
This isn't the first time a Disney film has faced backlash, but this is different. This time, the star became the scandal. Not because she broke rules or leaked spoilers, but because she openly disrespected the very thing she was hired to represent. And no one at Disney stopped her. There was no PR cleanup, no firm retraction, no executive stepping up to defend the film's vision. The studio left Rachel to handle it on her own, and in the vacuum of silence, the internet created its own narrative. Now fans aren't just angry, they're hurt, because they didn't see a modern update. They saw a legacy film repackaged by people who didn't seem to love it, and a lead actress who seemed to resent it. And that emotional disconnect, is what made the theaters fold, because no one buys tickets for a story they feel mocked by.
Literally no offense to anyone. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
Once theaters began dropping Snow White, Disney reportedly went into full-on panic mode. Sources close to the distribution and marketing teams claim the studio held crisis meetings daily, trying to control a situation that was spiraling by the hour. The first wave of strategy: damage control. Internal emails circulated suggesting quiet reframing of the press narrative. PR advisors allegedly urged executives to lean on phrases like taken out of context and empowerment misinterpreted. But the internet wasn't buying it. The more Disney tried to soft pedal the backlash, the louder fans got. And the worst part? People inside the company leaked it all. Entertainment bloggers started receiving anonymous tips about internal chaos. Executives allegedly clashed behind closed doors over whether to pull Rachel from the future press appearances. Some wanted her silenced entirely. Others feared that doing so would validate the backlash. But the real kicker? Insiders say Disney quietly reached out to partner theaters, requesting extensions on showings, hoping to slow the narrative that Snow White was being removed. But it was too late. Theater owners weren't willing to lose money on half-empty rooms just to protect Disney's brand. When the money dried up, the conversation was over.
Look at this. Look at his face. What can be said about this level of narcissism here?
While US audiences were leading the boycott, international distributors were watching carefully. And when the backlash didn't go away, they acted fast. In the UK, several chains began pulling Snow White without so much as a tweet. Reports confirmed that multiple scheduled screenings were replaced with other Disney titles, including Encanto and Inside Out. One British theater manager told an outlet, "It just wasn't worth keeping it on the schedule. We had 2 people show up to a Saturday matinee." In Spain and Germany, cinemas removed promotional posters just days after opening. In Asia, where Disney has traditionally relied on strong box office performance, audiences never connected with the film at all. Japan saw one of the weakest openings for a Disney live-action film in years. Korean distributors quietly downgraded the film from primetime to midweek afternoon filler slots. And in Latin America, a region where Rachel Zegler's casting was expected to resonate most, theater chains reported early interest vanishing after the press storm hit global news. The international consensus? This film had no legs, no love, no magic. It was over before it began.
Cheering for herself.
Theaters weren't the only ones pulling back. Retail followed. Across major US retail chains, stores began slashing Snow White merchandise from front-of-store displays. A large nationwide retailer reportedly received a stop-sell directive on new stock just a week after the film opened. According to toy industry insiders, vendors were told to hold shipments of themed dolls, apparel, backpacks, and lunchboxes until further notice. Even parks weren't safe. At Disney theme parks, snow. White character meet and greets saw noticeable cutbacks. Online forums reported a sudden disappearance of Snow White 2025 merchandise from Disneyland gift shops. Guests noticed it too. Photos of barren shelves where product once sat quickly circulated on Twitter with captions like, "Even Disney doesn't want to sell this movie anymore." It's one thing to lose the box office. It's another to lose the merchandising empire that funds the next 10 years of brand content. And when that goes dark, you're witnessing something unprecedented.
And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story, don't change the character.
Now, let's talk about the woman at the center of it all. Rachel Zegler went from Hollywood's newest darling to the face of a cultural firestorm. Her performance in West Side Story earned her awards, a loyal fan base, and headlines calling her Disney's next princess. But one press tour later, she's allegedly toxic to cast, and multiple insiders say offers are drying up fast. Industry whispers claim at least 2 major streaming deals involving Rachel were paused pending reevaluation. A major studio role in a franchise spin-off was pulled after public reception tracking turned negative. Multiple brand partnerships are said to have gone cold without explanation. And here's the chilling part. Rachel hasn't done another major unscripted interview since. Sources claim she's now on tight PR lockdown, with every post, appearance, and soundbite reviewed by reputation consultants. It's not just image repair, it's survival mode. because, in the eyes of the public, she became the actress who mocked the fans and then watched the film collapse.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
The ego on this girl is ridiculous. Wow.
When one reboot flops, it's a problem. When the reboot, the one that started it all, gets publicly pulled from theaters and buried under internet shame, that's a crisis. And Disney knows it. Sources close to production say that Snow White's implosion has caused a total internal freeze on multiple live-action remakes. What was once a stacked release schedule of modernized classics is now a scrap heap of uncertainty. Here's what's reportedly been paused or put under creative review. Tangled, the long-rumored live-action version, has been shelved, and discussions with potential leads cooled off mid-March. The Princess and the Frog development slowed dramatically, with concerns over how the reboot might be received following Snow White's backlash. Hercules, previously in active casting, stages. Now, waiting on market trend assessments, according to one producer. The vibe behind the scenes? No one wants to be next. And who could blame them? Studios don't pour hundreds of millions into films just to end up trending for all the wrong reasons.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could off.
While Rachel Zegler bore the brunt of the backlash, Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, took a much quieter approach. And girl, it worked. Insiders say Gal fulfilled her contractual press obligations early and efficiently, then swiftly exited the spotlight. No viral sound bites, no messy statements, no engagement with fan drama. But here's the twist. When Disney allegedly asked her to participate in last-minute international press to help cushion the fallout, she said no, not publicly, not rudely, but firmly. One report claims her reps told Disney she would not continue promotional work beyond what was initially agreed upon, citing schedule conflicts. But industry voices say that's PR code for, I'm not going down with this ship. And guess what? It worked. While Rachel trended for all the wrong reasons, Gal walked away untouched, her reputation, her career, and her image fully intact. It's the ultimate villain move. Exit quietly while the kingdom burns behind you.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
She wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
With box office numbers collapsing, merchandise pulled, and global reception tanking, Disney is reportedly preparing to vault Snow White indefinitely. Internally, there are whispers of a 3-step phase-out plan. Remove all theatrical promotions. From streaming banners, storefronts, and parks, delay the Disney Plus drop for as long as possible, possibly waiting a full year to avoid renewed backlash. Pretend it didn't happen. Treat Snow White 2025 the way Disney quietly treated John Carter or Tomorrowland, expensive missteps that are barely acknowledged in official timelines. And honestly, it wouldn't be the first time, but fans aren't letting it go that easy. People are already screen recording trailers, archiving clips, and uploading unreleased footage as receipts of what Disney would rather forget. Because once something flops this hard, with this much internet history attached, you can't. Just sweep it away. It's burned in digital ink.
And so it was like
Those people.
very much this, yes. It
Yeah,
was this
the people who
awakening
need
of-
to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
Here's what's really at stake: audience trust. For years, Disney built its empire on one promise, that no matter the story, no matter the update, the magic would still be there. But Snow White exposed what happens when the message replaces the magic, when the story is sacrificed for the slogan, when characters become caricatures of commentary, and the audience notices. And now that audiences have shown they're willing to reject a Disney film outright, the power dynamic has shifted. Studios can no longer rely on legacy titles to carry box office. They can't assume nostalgia will protect them. And they definitely can't ignore the voice of the very people they're selling to. This wasn't just the removal of a movie from theaters. It was the audience saying, we're not buying this anymore.
The people who you need to entertain, the people who you need to serve, the people who pay your salary.
Let's talk damage. Rachel Zegler's career didn't just take a hit, it was thrown under the wheels of a runaway press tour. Overnight, she went from Oscar-buzz darling to a case study in how not to promote a legacy film. And it wasn't because she slipped up once. It was because she said exactly what the internet had already grown tired of hearing. She didn't just criticize the original Snow White, She mocked it. She didn't just modernize her role. She made it sound like the original story was a problem she was forced to fix. And when backlash hit, instead of pivoting or clarifying, she doubled down, repeatedly. For many fans, this wasn't just PR tone deafness. It was betrayal. The fairy tale they grew up with was being used as a punchline by the person who was supposed to represent it. Now the question is, can she come back from this? She has talent. No one's denying that. But Hollywood has a long memory when it comes to PR disasters tied to box office failure. And when your name is attached to a project so toxic it gets pulled from theaters, it sticks. Especially when that project was supposed to launch a franchise, not bury it. The honest truth? Rachel Zegler may need years of carefully curated work to undo the image this one film left behind. She might bounce back, but not as a Disney princess.
Every single white male is a piece of shit, and the woman is the hero, and all authority is bad, and all business is bad, but government is good. And most people don't know what they're watching. She, unfortunately, sort of pulled the curtain back, and people knew exactly what was going on.
Here's the part the studio doesn't want you to think about. This was never just one film. This Snow White reboot was supposed to be a cornerstone of Disney's future IP strategy, a model for legacy reinvention, merchandise longevity, and expanded universes. The evil queen was lined up for spin-offs. The dwarfs, or whatever replaced them, were getting toy lines. Rachel's version of Snow White was being prepped for park appearances, branded books, and holiday merchandise for years. And now, all of that is dust. So, does Disney try again? Do they reboot the reboot? Do they go quiet for 5 years and relaunch the original with a new cast, a nostalgic trailer, and a back-to-basics message? Insiders say it's being discussed, not greenlit, not planned, discussed. But here's the catch. They'll have to overcome massive brand fatigue, audience mistrust, and the reality that this version of Snow White didn't just flop, it offended people. And when the trust is broken, even a fairy tale can't save you.
When people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much.
We need to talk bigger picture now, because the collapse of Snow White didn't happen in isolation. It came at the tail end of a string of live-action remakes that felt off, glossy, mechanical, emotionally hollow. It's no longer 2015. The audience has changed. People are smarter, they've seen what works and what doesn't, and they're not afraid to say, no thanks. The failure of Snow White proves something that's been bubbling for years. You can't just repaint a fairy tale with a modern message and expect magic. Live-action Disney had its moment. Cinderella worked because it respected the originals. Heart, The Jungle Book worked because it added depth without mocking its source. But Snow White, it didn't honor the story, it rewrote it for clout. And the audience said, we're done. Studios are watching this closely. Because if Disney can't pull off Snow White, what remake is safe?
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely when it got announced.
She wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
The biggest takeaway from this disaster isn't about Rachel. It's not even about Disney. It's about a deeper disconnect that's been growing for years. The one between studios and the people they claim to represent. Audiences don't mind change. They don't fear updates. What they reject is condescension. They know when a story is being retold with love and when it's being weaponized for buzz. And Snow White 2025 didn't feel like love. It felt like a lecture. It felt like a studio saying, you're wrong for liking the old version and we're here to fix it. So the audience walked. They didn't show up. They didn't clap. They didn't even boo. They just disappeared. And when that happens, not even the House of Mouse is safe.
Everyone is serving a man. It's just her going, we need to change. No, you don't need, it's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain.
What happens now is up to the audience. And that means it's up to you. Does Rachel deserve a second chance? Should Disney reboot Snow White again, this time with care, heart, and actual storytelling? Should Hollywood retire the reboot era and start writing new fairy tales for a new generation? Or has the damage been done? This isn't just a trending headline anymore. This is a turning point. Studios are watching, actors are watching, theaters are watching, and your voice, your comments, your clicks, your reactions will shape what they do next. So tell us, did you watch Snow White? Did you skip it? Were you offended, disappointed, confused, or just tired of the whole thing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The honest ones, the hot takes, the unpopular opinions, all of it. And if you love real talk, full breakdowns, and deep dives into the stories Hollywood won't tell you, you know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, because this wasn't just a box office crash. It was the day the glass coffin cracked and no one came to wake the princess.